Let's see. Um, this should be fine. This should be fine. Let's see how this works out. I'm live on YouTube and Instagram. And we're going to talk about Moorish government. Hold on one second. I want to make sure everything is working the way it should. Let me know if everyone can hear me. Here to learn, good, because I'm going to be teaching. I just want to make sure that YouTube is working fine, so I'm going to open it up on this thing because for some reason, I can't see the YouTube chat at all. And that might be a problem. Do that. Hear you? Cool. All right, they can hear me on Instagram. We're going to talk about, like I said, Moorish government. Hold on. This YouTube thing is taking a sweet time. I want to make sure it's live. I don't see it. Juju, can you check to see if I'm live on YouTube right now? Yeah, let me know if you can hear me because I can't pull it up. Test. Can you hear me? Okay, so all right, so you can hear me. All right, cool. Thank you. I just for some reason can't see the chat at all. Yeah, that's the delay is fine. All right. I can't see the chat on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube and you're asking questions, I can't see. But right here we have two circles. We're going to talk about jurisdiction of the Moorish government and jurisdiction of the United States. So this one right here, we're going to fill it red, and then we're going to put in a star. 5-pointed star. Where's the stars at? Obviously, the one with the one that's red with the 5-pointed green star is us. And we'll do this one. We'll just do this one. We'll do this. Let me see. What can I do here? Doesn't have to be great. It just has to exist. We'll do this right here. All right, that's as good as you're getting. So let me group this together so when I move it, it's all right. So these are two separate jurisdictions, right? Two separate circles, two separate entities. There was the creation of something called the ISC. And this was in a video I talked about last. Let me see. Let me check. Let me check the YouTube. I talked about this. Wow, YouTube is acting crazy on this. I talked about this. Where's the video at? Nine days ago. The video is called Moorish Constitutional Convention. And I read from this document, and it starts off saying this: Be it resolved that on this 19th day of March 2021, the undersigned do hereby agree and establish a body politic to assist in the resurrection of the Moorish government pursuant to the natural principle of just post limine. This body politic shall be known as and serve the purposes of, quote, the interim special committee for the specific purposes of hosting and establishing a free Moorish national constitutional convention and taking all necessary steps to meet these ends. Right? And I went over a lot of things in that video, but for now, we're going to say that this circle represents the ISC. All right, so we'll put the ISC in the circle of the Moroccan flag, and then we'll just put USA here. So that way you know what I'm talking about, who I'm talking about. And we'll also do this. Let me see. Let's see. We will do this. What can I do? What can I do? We'll just do a square. How about that? We'll do a square. We'll send it back. We'll make it green. This square represents the continent of America. That's what this square represents. So we see these two body politics on this continent. I'll do that so you can see that. Everyone should be able to see that. Right? We'll also do this right here. House Resolution 0689 from the state of Illinois and 1203 from the state of Georgia, as well as Title 29, Chapter 1, Jurisdiction and Sovereignty. Spelled that wrong. Subsection 106 of the Delaware Code, all specify that, specify wrong. Moorish Americans are aboriginal and indigenous to the Americas. So all three of these states have information regarding the fact that Moors are aboriginal and indigenous to the Americas. Right? So the ISC right here, the Interim Special Committee for the specific purposes of establishing a Moorish Constitutional Convention to resurrect the Moorish government, which means we weren't, and this comprised over 200 Moorish Americans were involved in this. We weren't saying that we 200 Moors are the lawful government of all Moors. We were saying the Moorish nation needs a government, and we're going to help in establishing that. And we are a special committee to do just that. That in itself was a governmental act done by Moors on our own homeland. There were over 200 Moors involved in this. Now, what won't be shown on YouTube, but will be shown on Instagram, just because I don't feel like doing the things through Streamlab, is I'm going to riseofthemoors.org. I'm going to click on Res Judicata, then click on Nationality, Citizenship, and Sovereignty. Then I'm going to scroll down. There's a federal case, English versus Missy's International Banking System. I'm going to click that. I'm going to copy it. Then I'm going to paste it right here. Over 200 Moorish nationals. So this wasn't the actions of one man, right? Over 200 Moorish nationals were involved in this. Now, what I just copied and pasted onto the PowerPoint presentation was a case. See if I can zoom in. It was a case where Dickinson de Bevois, I cannot read European names, who was a senior judge, stated that what then, let me make it white so you guys can see better. Oops, I just made it bigger. That's fine. Let's move this. Oh, we can't move it because it's in the center. But he said this. Actually, let me do this. Make it black. And then I will fill the shape temporarily white. Okay. We'll zoom in a little bit. This federal judge said, sorry, Instagram. This federal judge said, what then does nationality encompass if it is not to be construed as being synonymous and coexistive with national origin? Nationality has several definitions, one of which appears to embrace the national origin concept, a people having a common origin, tradition, and language, and capable of forming or actually constituting a nation state. Right? So those Moorish nationals all claim the same national origin. Right? And we were exercising our right to be capable of forming to eventually constitute an actual nation state. Now, again, what's not going to be shown on YouTube, but I talked about in the previous video, is something called the right to self-determination. Self-determination. And we'll go to let's do this. The right to self-govern. The right to self-govern. The right to self-govern. The right to self-governing refers to the idea that individuals and groups have the right to govern themselves, to make decisions about their own lives, and to determine their own future. Self-governance. This is from Wikipedia. If it will load. It's having a problem load because I'm live on Streamlabs. But like I said, I did this video last week. Self-governance, self-government, or self-rule is the ability of a person or group to exercise all necessary functions of regulation without intervention from an external authority. Self-governance is closely related to various philosophical and socio-political concepts such as autonomy, independence, self-control, self-discipline, and sovereignty. In the context of nation-states, self-governance is called national sovereignty, which is an important concept in international law. In the context of administrative division of self-governing territory is called an autonomous region. Self-governance is also associated with political contexts in which a population or demographic becomes independent from colonial rule, absolute government, absolute monarchy, or any government that they perceive does not adequately represent them. That's what I just read. Here is the link. And obviously this right here, these footnotes also have links. All right, every word that you see highlighted has a link. So that way you can see for yourself. Let's make that a little bigger. Right? So in context to nation states, which just means the people who have the same nationality, who are capable of forming or actually constituting a nation state, they have the right to self-govern, which means to become independent from colonial rule, to become independent from absolute government, to become independent from absolute monarchy or any other government they perceive that does not adequately represent them. Let's also look something else up. Let's also look up the Act of State Doctrine. I spelled doctrine wrong, but that's okay. Typos are fine. We all make mistakes. I fat-fingered it. The Act of State Doctrine. The Act of State Doctrine, or Federal Act of State Doctrine, is a principle of federal common law in the United States, which states, in circumstances where it applies, that courts in the United States will not rule on the validity of another government's sovereign act with respect to property located within its own territory. So let's copy that. And let's paste that. Actually, we'll do this right here. We'll do this. Make this a little smaller. We'll do that. Paste that. Copy this. Paste it here. Because it's an act of state doctrine that the courts in the United States have said this. So this is their federal laws. Let's continue to read. We'll scroll down right here. That in this United States Supreme Court case, Underhill versus Hernandez, the court reasoned every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state, and the courts of one country will not sit in judgment of the acts of the government of another done within its own territory. So we'll do this, we'll copy that, and we'll put this right here. United States Supreme Court. Paste. And then we will put the court case. We'll put the whole link. So the right to self-governance has to deal with the fact that people with the same common origin have the right, according to the United States federal courts, to form the nation state. That right is based to resurrect the Moorish government, which comprised of over 200 Moorish nationals, coupled with the fact that there are several states within the United States that have recognized that Moors are aboriginal and indigenous to North, South, and Central America, which means the act of state doctrine applies because the United States Supreme Court said that every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state, and the courts of one country, meaning the courts of the United States, will not sit in judgment on the acts of the government of another done within its own territory. So we already established that these people right here, these Moors, are on their own homeland, the continent of America. And through their interim special committee for the specific purposes of hosting and establishing a free Moorish national constitutional convention and taking all necessary steps to meet these ends, these people were styled as a separate government, a separate state, which means the acts of our government was done on our own land, which means what? The United States courts have no jurisdiction to rule over anything that we were doing. So when these people, one second. So when these people, right, send a national militia to train for their defense, send a national militia on a training exercise to train for the defense of their nation. Spelled exercise wrong. To train for the defense of their nation. And then these people arrest the Moorish militia. They have committed an international, a violation of international law. Why? Because their own Supreme Court. What did their very own Supreme Court say? Their very own Supreme Court said that the courts of every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state. And the courts of one country, meaning the United States, will not sit in judgment on the acts of the governments of another done within its own territory. So they committed a violation of their own laws. A violation of the right to self-governance. This is called a violation of international law. This right here, when the Moors, in the pursuit of their right to self-determination and self-autonomy and self-governance, act as a governing body and simply send Moors to go train for their own defense, not to harm anyone, and then another country intervenes and arrests those people, that's a violation of international law. That's a violation of these Moors' right to self-determination. That's a violation of the rights of indigenous people. The state of Massachusetts, the Massachusetts State Troopers, the Massachusetts District Court, the Massachusetts Superior Court, Woburn Superior Court, Woburn District Court, have all committed a crime against the Moorish people. They have all violated the Moors' right to self-determination. They have all violated the Moorish right to self-governance as guaranteed by the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. The United States has also violated their own Supreme Court decision, known as the Act of State Doctrine, where the United States Supreme Court themselves said that every sovereign state is bound to respect the independence of every other sovereign state, and the courts of one country will not sit in judgment on the acts of the government of another, done within its own territory. So when the interim special committee, for the specific purposes of hosting and establishing a free Moorish national constitutional convention and taking all necessary steps to meet these ends, which comprise of over 200 sundry free Moors, which means 200 mixed Moors, which means it wasn't just one Moorish organization, it wasn't just two Moorish organizations, it wasn't 10 people, it wasn't 20 people, it was the collective will of 200 people to resurrect their own government, to self-govern. In the context of a nation state, self-governance is called national sovereignty, which is an important concept of international law. In the context of administrative division, a self-governing territory is called an autonomous region. Self-governance is also associated with political context in which a population or demographic, meaning Moors, becomes independent from colonial rule, meaning the United States. They become independent from absolute government, which means a democracy. They become independent from an absolute monarchy, meaning a democracy, or any other government that they perceive does not adequately represent them. Those Moors, in an attempt to exercise their right to self-govern and send a group of Moorish American nationals to train for their defense, were violently interrupted by the United States government. when the Moors were exercising their right to self-govern by sending a national militia to train for their own defense, like every other nation has the right to do, they were violated by the United States government, specifically the state of Massachusetts, specifically the Massachusetts state troopers. And the courts of the state of Massachusetts is violating federal law by sitting in judgment over those Moors when they were acting in concert with the Moorish government. Not by themselves, not independently like this mass shooter just was, murdering people. The Moorish militia wasn't murdering anyone. The Moorish militia wasn't trying to rob anyone or steal anything. They were going to train for their own defense, a right guaranteed to them by the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People and the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. And the United States intervened and violated their right to self-govern, violated their right to self-autonomy, violated their right to exist as a separate nation of people who govern themselves. When are we going to stand up and say, this is enough? This is wrong. You violated our collective right to self-govern. You violated our collective right to self-autonomy. One of those same 200 plus Moors going to say, hey, we need to go to the United Nations and tell them what happened. In our plight, in our struggle for self-autonomy, for independence, the United States acted violently towards us. The United States arrested our people, arrested our citizens, violated our treaty, violated the principles of the United Nations, violated the principles codified in the rights of indigenous people, violated the principles codified in the Declaration on Human Rights. When are we Moors going to go to the United Nations and say that? It can't be just me by myself. Hey, I was part of a Moorish militia that was connected to the Moorish government, and they violated our rights. But by the way, it's just me by myself. They're going to turn around and say, well, where's your Moorish government that you were part of? Where are the other Moors? Where are they at? What am I supposed to say by myself? Oh, well, they got scared. Meanwhile, they're threatening me with 88 years, not you. What's stopping the 200 Moors from going to the UN saying, hey, this is what happened to our people were violated, we need help. We need to bring those criminals to justice. What's stopping them from doing that? Someone said this is why we gotta come together. So let's come together. Let's go. When we go into the UN, I can testify. I was there. I can testify in open court at the UN and say what happened to me, and let the United Nations know that a few of the Moors were tortured while we were in jail. I can testify to that. When are we going? When are we going? When are we going? When are we going? Let's go. When are we going? Let me see more videos of more Moors talking about this, saying we need to go to the UN to file complaints against the United States for violating our right to self-determination. Let's go. We don't need the Moorish Science Temple of America to be involved. We need you, all of you. If you hear this and you feel like something needs to be done, we need you. All we have to do is go to the UN. It's right in New York. It ain't far. Right in New York. We could all take a special holiday. We could all call out of work in advance. Plan a trip. If Moors can show up to rap concerts, if Moors can show up to barbecues, if Moors can show up to the studio, we can show up to the UN and say our rights were violated. When are we going? When are we going? Let's go. Someone said, line it up. I'll be there. It's not up to me. It's up to the Moors. I'm just one of the Moors advocating for our people, which is all of our job. I'm just one of the wills of the Moors. I'm one person. Self-governance requires the will of our people. I want this to happen. I want us to go to the UN, so I'm speaking up. I'm speaking up about it. I know that our right to self-determination and our right to self-governance was violated. I know the Act of State doctrine was violated. I know the UN Charter was violated. I know the UN Declaration on Human Rights was violated. I know the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People were violated. So I think we as a people should go to the United Nations and tell on the United States and press charges against the United States for violating our right to goddamn exist. Since I believe in that, I'm speaking up and I'm encouraging Moors to let's go to the goddamn UN. I can't be the only person. I'm just one man. Vice News said there's over 1,000 applications of Moors requesting the United States to recognize us as a separate nation of people. What are we doing with that information? The fact that 11 Moors that were part of the interim special committee for the specific purposes of hosting and establishing a free national constitutional convention for fucking Moorish Americans made worldwide news. And we didn't show up to the UN. Why aren't there more Moors speaking up saying, let's go to the UN? Why isn't there a group of Moors organizing us going to the UN? Especially when those 11 Moors that were part of this Moorish government were arrested. Where's our leaders at? How come I don't see any other Moor? I don't see any other Moor or any other Moorish organization except me saying we need to reestablish the interim special committee for the specific purposes of establishing a Moorish constitutional convention. Why am I the only one saying we need to go to the United Nations and report crimes against the United States and file a claim against the United States for what they did to all of us July 3rd, 2021? Why aren't more Moors talking about this? I don't want to hear, Moors are afraid. Well, you ain't talking about it, so you must be afraid. Moors need to organize. Well, you ain't rallying the troops, so you must be unorganized. Let's go. When we going? When are we going? When are we going to the UN? When? Because we could, right now, it's October 28th. It's October 28th. Call your job on Monday and say January 8th, 2024, I will not be in work. I will not be at my place of employment. I will be at the United Nations. Look how easy it is to plan that. What are we doing? How many months in advance is that? How many months in advance from now to January 8th of next year, 2024? How many months in advance is that? For you to tell your job, hey, it's a religious holiday for me. It's my prophet's birthday. January 8th, 2024 is my prophet's birthday. He told me to celebrate his birthday. This is religious for me. And by celebrating his birthday, as many of us as possible are going to show up to the United Nations headquarters in New York to advocate for ourselves finally on an international platform. And we're not going to leave the building until we accomplish those ends. Why aren't we doing that? When are we going? Because when we go to the United Nations and we tell everyone on the floor of the United Nations what happened to us, we're going to get allies. Other nations are going to fund us so we can establish ourselves as a separate nation of people. We're going to get humanitarian aid to get our people out of their projects. We're going to have help from Brazil, China, Russia, Iran, South Africa to help us get on the gold standard. Venezuela is going to sympathize with us. Palestine is going to sympathize with us. Saudi Arabia is going to sympathize with us. Morocco is going to sympathize with us. Angola is going to sympathize with us. Nigeria is going to sympathize with us. Ghana is going to sympathize with us. Every colonized people at the UN is going to sympathize with us and support us. We just have to be big boys and big girls and advocate for ourselves like everyone else is doing. So when are we going to the UN? Right now it's October 28th, 2023. If Moors want to go January 8th, 2024, let it be known. A bunch of Moors need to be doing videos. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go. So that way we know, okay, we see the Moorish will. The Moors actually want this to happen. All those people who you think aren't going to show up, who cares about them? I'm talking to you. You. Don't point the finger, oh, well, those Moors over there. What are you doing? You down to go? You want to go? Who's going? Who's willing to go? Who's willing to speak up for themselves like big boys and big girls? Who's willing to put on their turban and fez, dress their best like their prophet told them to do, go walk into United Nations headquarters at New York and say, "Excuse me, sir or ma'am. You see all 200, 300, 400, 500 of these Moors? We are trying to establish ourselves as a separate nation of people, and the United States of America keeps attacking us. They keep arresting us. They keep harming us. They keep assassinating us. And here's all the records, and we'll tell you more in detail. Who do we need to speak to, sir or ma'am?" Then phones are gonna ring. Hey, General, whoever chairman of the UN, there's over 200 people here saying this, and this. They need to talk to you. And then we can say, by the way, if the chairman of the UN doesn't show up, we're not leaving, because our women are being thrown in prison, our men are being thrown in prison, our women and children are being thrown out on the street, kicked out of their homes when this is their land. We have too much to lose to not have a meeting with whoever's in charge of the UN. And we want to have a special hearing tomorrow or today with representatives of every nation present, including the United States, so that way they can answer for their crimes. When are we going? Forget everybody else. Forget all the people not showing up. Forget all the dirty Moors. Forget all the Moors who ain't being active. Forget all the Moors who ain't doing shit. Let's leave them in the dust. When are we going? When are we going? When are we going? I keep seeing people in the chat talking about other shit. When are we going? Let's go. If you want to come in the chat talking about nonsense, cool. If you actually want to make some change for our people and the next generation, let's go to the United Nations headquarters in New York and file an official claim against the United States government, because the interim special committee, for the specific purposes of hosting and establishing a free Moorish constitutional convention and taking all necessary steps to meet these ends in their pursuit to self-governance, to self-autonomy, were attacked by the United States. Moors were thrown in jail, spit on, thrown in a cell butt naked. Moors spent over a year in solitary confinement. Moors had to clean up blood of someone who committed suicide and then live in that same cell. That's torture. Why are we not advocating for those Moors at the UN and reporting the war crimes and the crimes against humanity that the United States is committing against us? Why don't we bring up the fact that the United States has been conducting covert operations to assassinate our leaders and throw our leaders in jail? Documented by themselves. There's nothing stopping us from going to the UN and telling on the US. If Moors can comment in opposition every day on my Instagram post, then we have enough energy to go to the UN and complain about the US. What are we waiting for? When are we going? When are we going? Why am I the only Moor talking about this? Why is no one else talking about the ISC and bringing it back? Why? Where the videos at? Where they at? Moors made international news 2021. Why wasn't a delegation sent to the UN? Why? Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes. Let's learn from our mistakes. Pick up where we left off and go to the goddamn UN. I don't want to hear about what individuals have done. I don't care about no individuals. A group of 10 Moors, a group of 5 Moors, a group of 3 more. I don't care about that. 100, 200, 300 Moors go to the UN. When are we going? When are we going? Let's go. What are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? Why is no one else advocating for the resurrection of the interim special committee for the specific purpose of hosting and establishing a free Moorish National Constitutional Convention? It can't just fall on me. It's not just my job. I'm not the nation. I'm just one national. I'm just one person. Why is no one else making videos on this? Why is no one else advocating for this? What's stopping you? What's stopping you from caring about your own people? Matter of fact, what's stopping you from caring about yourself? Because if only 10 people show up, well, then the UN's going to hear from 10 Moors. If 200 more show up, well, then the UN's going to hear from 200 Moors. If 1,000 more show up, the UN's going to hear from 1,000 Moors. And we're going to tell the United Nations that in the effort to establish ourselves as a separate nation of people, not controlled by the United States colonies, we were injured by the United States. Moors were thrown in jail. Moors were spit on. Moors weren't fed. Moors weren't allowed to shower, thrown in a cell butt naked. Moors had to clean up blood from people who committed suicide and then live in that same cell in isolation for almost a year. Those are crimes against humanity. What's stopping you from going on your social media platform, not arguing with me on my Instagram comments, and saying what happened to those Moors was wrong? We need to go to the UN and tell on the US and file a claim against the US. What's stopping you from doing that? Why is it just my responsibility to speak up against this as if it's only affecting me when it's affecting every single one of us? Why are you not outraged by the fact that we're being injured? When are we going to the UN? Look, there's even more arguing in the comments. Pay attention. Pay attention. When are we going to? No one's answering the question. When are we going to the UN? When? When are we going? Answer that question. Don't ask no other questions. Don't talk about anyone else. When are we going to the UN? When? Because right now, let's see, 18 people on YouTube and let's see, 13 people on Instagram. How many people is that? How many more is that? Do the math. How many people is that? 18? Oh, nope. 22 on YouTube. 22 on YouTube. 12 on Instagram. How many people is that? That's enough. That's enough to do something. Imagine all of us go have a conference. All of us have a conference and talk about our intent to sue the United States for all that they've done to us. And then we send these videos to every single consulate and every single consular general, the consulate of Ghana, the consulate of Haiti, the consulate of Angola, the consulate of Niger, the consulate of China, the consulate of Palestine, the consulate of Vietnam, the consulate of Venezuela, every single consulate on our land, and tell them what's happening to us. What type of impact would that have? It would be huge. What's stopping us? Don't say those Moors over there. What's stopping us? You're watching the video. You're watching it. So what's stopping us from doing that? Look, someone's trying to pass the buck. A majority of Moors are claiming to be black. Vice News did an interview with my family, made their interview public, and in that little documentary series / interview, they themselves, a third party, themselves, who Alzo's an Asiatic man, by the way, so-called black man, stated that there's over 1 million applications from Moorish Americans requesting the United States to recognize us as a government. So you don't need to point and blame the finger on so-called black people. There's 1 million of us. Moors, not blacks, Moors. So what's stopping us? Stop passing the buck. What's stopping us? 13 people on Instagram, 26 people on YouTube. All we got to do is go to the UN. All you got to do is get in the car, get on a plane, go to New York, go to the UN, say, hey, we're all of us here wearing turbans and fezzes, all 200 of us. As a matter of fact, how many people here? 23, 12. How many people is that? Someone do the math. 23 and 12. 12 people on Instagram. 12 people on Instagram. 23 people on YouTube. How many Moors is that? Someone do the math. How many Moors is that? Let me see. I'm looking at the comments. Add it up. Now it says 22 people on YouTube. 14 people on Instagram. Add that up. How many people is that? How many Moors is that? How many Moors? Let me see. How many Moors? Someone said 34. What's stopping all 34 of us from saying, okay, let's have a meeting tomorrow, and we're going to plan a trip to the UN. What's stopping us from doing that? You can't say black people, because none of you are black. You're all Moors. You can't say the Moorish Science Temple of America sold out, because all of you are here on your own free will. What's your excuse? What's our excuse? You can't say ego, because what is us going to the UN and advocating for our rights have to do with anyone's individual ego? Nothing. So what's up? What's the excuse? What's stopping us? What's stopping us? What? Our own free will. That's the only thing. What are we doing? What's stopping all 34 of us from posting and making a video or lives every single day? All of us, not just me. I'm only one man. All of us going live every day. We need a Moorish government. We need to go to the UN. What's stopping us? As a matter of fact, I was at the masjid last Friday. After prayer, the Muslim said, special announcement, on this date, we're all going to the State House to protest against the Israeli genocide against the Palestinians. And guess what happened? They were there and they showed up. Look how easy that was. Local news, everyone was recording it. It's on a bunch of people's social media. Look how easy that was. This is what we're going to do because this is what we believe in. I mean, they accomplished nothing. No support was given to Palestine. But they still did something. So what's stopping us from all saying January 8th, 2024, we're going to the UN? Whoever shows up, shows up. Whoever doesn't has no right to complain about their conditions. It's October 28th, 2023. That's enough time for you to call out of work. Boss, I'm gonna be sick January 8th. Boss, January 8th is a religious holiday for me. I'm not gonna show up. I'm calling you 3 months in advance. I'm telling you 3 months in advance. What's stopping us from doing that? What's stopping us from saying, "Oh man, I can't afford that," but let me see if another Moor lives in the same territory as me, and they got a ride. I can throw a little bit of gas money at least. $2, $5, anything. What's stopping us from doing that? Come on, let's be serious. Someone said, so the date is January 8th, 2024. I don't know. I'm proposing it. There needs to be people who are in charge of collecting names and other Moors, just information in general, some type of logistical committee or team to make sure that this actually happens. To make sure that there's more awareness being spread about this. Not just me, I'm one person. I'm making a suggestion. It's up to the will of the Moors if that's the date. If the Moors say yes, then it's yes. Not me. I don't control and own the Moors. I don't. Every single Moorish American has their own free will, their own ability to choose. And there's nothing stopping us except for our own free will. And the best part about it is I don't even have to be involved. I don't even have to say anything. I don't even have to be there. So long as there's Moorish Americans speaking up for us at the UN, that's enough. It don't gotta be me. I don't need to be in charge. I don't want to be in charge. Motherfuckers don't even listen. So somebody step up and take charge. Organize this. What are we doing? What are we doing? Somebody take charge. What's up? And if you don't want to take charge, say it. If we need to nominate someone, someone nominate someone. If we need to vote, we vote. Don't pay attention to people trying to stir shit up. Are we going or no? Who's in charge? Do we need to vote or no? Who's nominating who? Basic, simple logistical questions. Basic stuff. This is basic information. What are we doing? The best part is it don't even have to be the ISC. It could just be the free will of any Moors. That's what's so crazy about this. That's what's so amazing about this. It could be any amount of people, any amount of Moors just saying, hey, we're Moors. We're trying to establish ourselves as a nation of people. We need help. This is what we're up against. That's how easy this is. What are we doing? What are we doing? Why do we waste time with people who cause division? Why do we waste time with people who cause infighting? Why are we not going to the UN and advocating for ourselves? Look, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's back out ISC. Let's just put Moors. It don't even have to have a name. Want to know why? Because we already have a free national name. Hey, UN, we're Moors. We're trying to establish ourselves as a government, as a nation of people, and the United States keeps stopping us, and this is how. They keep arresting us. They keep slandering us. They keep poisoning us. They kick us out of our own homes on our own homeland. They control our ability to move on our own homeland. They're controlling our resources on our own homeland. We need help. We need help from the UN to ensure that the United States is abiding by the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. What's stopping us from doing that?